Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. If this was a corporate event, my guest today would have gotten the gold watch several times. We're with Michael Britt, right? He's how long have you been with Lonestar?
Uh,
I have it
I'm
here.
do math. Don't make me do math.
No. I have it here. 1992, 28
28
years.
years. Yeah. I was thinking it was getting close to 30, but I didn't want to overstate.
Yeah, 28. That's way longer than most
That's
marriages. I
longer than
mean,
I've had. Yeah. I was only married for 9.5 years, so 10
there you
years.
go.
Yeah.
We're with the one and only Michael Britt from Lonestar. Quick announcement. I just want to say thank you, Joe West, for connecting us, and check out Joe's podcast from the West Barn. Also, make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com/subscribe to subscribe to the audio and video of the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the little icon that looks like a bell. That helps us with the YouTube algorithms. Thanks. All righty, Michael Britt. And he is not related to Tom or Bob.
I wish I was.
We're all separate Brits.
No. They're related. They're brothers. So
they're related.
I'm the third man out. I'm the odd man out.
Michael's the lead guitarist of the country band Lonestar. The band's been together for the most part with the same members since 1992. They've released 11 albums, 10 #1 singles, and over 10 million records sold. For you baby boomers, that means that people bought the records. Originally from Fort Worth, Texas, Michael moved to Nashville in 1992. Shortly afterwards, got called by a friend starting a band, needed a guitar player. Man, the rest is history. Right place, right times. Lonestar was originally called Texas-y. That's good that you changed that name, man.
Oh, God, yes.
Because all the members were from Texas and they met in Nashville. And this has been the band Michael's been in ever since. He is also a serious tone junkie and has profiled literally hundreds and hundreds of different amps and sounds on the Kemper, which he sells on his website. You can find it at mbrit.com, and we'll talk about that later. Man, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. What made you move to Nashville in the first place? And like, what'd you do for work once you first got there?
I actually kind of had a job when I first moved. So I was playing with the band. It was my second country band I'd ever been in. Got lucky and I got a gig playing with the local group. Well, they had a record deal for a while. They're called Canyon.
Okay.
They had songs on the radio and everything before I joined them. And I'd heard of them playing around Dallas-Fort Worth area in a different band. But so I was aware of them. And then I heard they were looking for a guitar player because their lead guitar player was leaving. And so I auditioned for that gig and got it. And played with them based in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for almost a year. And then the lead singer decided they were in between record deals. So he was moving to Nashville to try to be around the business to try to get a record deal.
Okay.
So he wanted to move the whole band up there. And so I moved up with Canyon.
Okay.
So I kind of had a gig going up into Nashville. So that, I don't know if I would have moved if I was just going up trying to make it just on my chops alone, because there were so many great players. But having a gig already, it was kind of like the perfect way to move to Nashville. So and that lasted for about 6 more months. And then he finally just called it quits. And then so now I'm living in Nashville and unemployed, looking for work.
And what'd you do?
Well, in the interim, I was just delivering pizzas, just to have, because I wanted a job that I could quit, without feeling bad about it. Sure. So I just wanted to pay my bills and eat, so I was working at Pizza Hut. And the drummer that was just playing in Canyon right before it broke up, he called me and said, hey, a friend of mine, from Texas is putting a band together. So that's how I got that call from the band I was just playing with, the same drummer. He was going to be in this new band that we were forming.
Oh my God, that is so cool. Has anybody ever come up to you like later on and said, dude, didn't you deliver pizzas? You delivered a pizza to me?
I don't think anyone would recognize me. Yeah.
That is, how do you look at this like in terms of destiny wise or spirituality wise? Like all these events, they're pretty, like if you'd have made a right turn instead of a left turn kind of thing, life would be totally different.
It would. And I take no credit for any of it. I mean, literally my whole life has been right place at the right time. It's like I was friends with the guy when I was going to school to be a pharmacist or an English major. I didn't really know at the time. I was bouncing back and forth. Was going to University of Texas, and this friend of mine was playing bass for this country band, and I'd played with him in garage bands around Fort Worth where I grew up. And he goes, hey man, we need a guitar player. Would you think about putting college on hold or whatever to do that? So that was my first real professional band was playing for them, and that was based in Waco, Baylor College. Some of those guys had gone to Baylor there. So
you put college on hold. You did.
I did. I'd switched my major a couple of times, and I was like, let me just try this, because I think in the back of my head I always wanted to play music, but I came from a really blue collar family and just didn't really see playing music as a viable option. My parents are very pragmatic.
Well, plus you're probably the first one to go to college, and they're a blue collar. That is a big obligation on, sense of payback, or, I understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was the one that went to college out of my family, and just, they had high hopes for me. And then I put college on hold to go play music. So I'm sure I was very disappointing at first, in the whole musical thing. They eventually came around after they started seeing me on TV and stuff.
That usually does it. Everybody says when they saw me on TV, or else the other one I hear is, when we came to town and played the arena and I had them backstage, they were totally different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's crazy how it changes, with circumstance. But yeah, I just feel like I've always been in the right place. So I got that gig, and that took me around local clubs and stuff. And one of those clubs is where I heard that Canyon was looking for a guitar player. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're literally opening up for Billy Joe Royal in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And one of those guys was saying how, hey, did you hear Canyon's looking for a guitar player? And I was like, So then I went and saw Canyon the next week, because they're playing in Dallas, and I talked to the lead singer and got an audition, and the rest is history there. So then I was with that band until it broke up, and then we started this one right after that with some of the same players. So it's just kind of, right place, right time every time. And there's some way better players than me in Nashville. I just happen to be from Texas and knew of some of these people.
Well, I was going to ask you that. You've kind of downplayed your skill in a humble way. Your skill sets, but man, I'm just sitting here before you said that thinking, man, you must be like very competent, and have always been very competent, because you go out and audition, you leave school. I mean, it just takes a lot of courage too, to leave school, to have confidence in yourself, to say, hey, I can do this thing. Well,
and I didn't know if I could or not, but I thought I didn't want to be older and look back and say, I wish I would have tried,
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work, then school's not going anywhere. Those colleges, they'll be there.
Sure.
I just thought, I'll try it. And then one thing led to another. And that's the entire scope of my life, is one thing led to another.
Yeah. But even to have that forethought, I mean, that's pretty mature of you to just think that, well, school's always going to be, I mean, I think that's a pretty mature thought process for a school age. I couldn't think like that in school. That's for sure.
I had to mature. I mean, I felt like I matured early. Like, I didn't do a lot of the things teenagers did. As soon as I turned 16, I was working at a drugstore. And by the time I was 17 or 18, I was one of the managers of the drugstore. And then even when I was going to college in Arlington, I was working full time the whole time. So, I mean, I was making a salary, manager salary at 18, going to college full time. It was nuts. So I never really had like the real college experience where you go out and hoop it up and have fun and just don't have any responsibilities. I was just, as soon as I turned 16, I was working and paying for my own stuff. So, I mean, my parents were very supportive, but, they were also very blue collar, and my dad's the only one that worked. And we didn't have a ton of money. So I fended for myself a lot.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. Things just happen for a reason, I think.
Yeah, I think so, man. But I'm glad I'm glad that they all happened, because it sounds like it sounds like you were welcome to receive these things too, and like ready to attack them.
And I didn't think of it as bravery at the time. I just thought, I don't know, it's an opportunity to try something.
Yeah, very cool.
And I'm definitely not the best player in Nashville. There's so many. As soon as I moved here, I was like, oh man, I'm way over my head. This is scary.
I've talked to so many guys that have said that. Like, I saw Brent Mason at the exit in or something. I'm like, I felt like I needed to leave town or something like that, or another, one of these.
First time I ever saw Brent Mason was making our first album. We went into the studio, and of course the producer didn't know anything. I mean, he knew very little about it. He knew the singers and stuff, but so he hired a whole band. We didn't even play on our first record hardly. I mean, I played some, but
really
sheer luck, But yeah, it was all studio guys.
So
I'm sitting there watching Brent play, and I'm trying to just not make a fool of myself. And I learned a lot from just watching him.
I'm sure. It's almost like, did the thought go through your head, I may never play, if he's playing on your first record, I would be sitting there thinking, I may never play on one of my own records if this guy's,
Well, I'm very driven. I mean, so that's the one thing. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to work hard at it and do it. And so that was the switch that said, okay, yeah, you've got a lot to learn. So by the second record, I was playing a lot of it, not the whole album. He's still the same producer second record. So Brent was all on it, but I also played with him on most of the songs.
Okay.
And so by the time we got Dan Huff, I mean, it was just me and Dan doing guitar stuff. And I learned a lot from everywhere, every step along the way. I tried to learn as much as I can from whoever I could. And I'm still learning. I mean, to this day, I don't feel like I know enough, whether it's about guitar playing or just tones or whatever. I want to learn. And I've always been that way. I just love learning. And I was a smart kid in high school. And so I was voted most likely to succeed in my class. You know, everybody thought I was the brainy geek.
Dude, that's awesome.
So, I mean, I've always just loved learning. So just to be able to do that with guitar playing is kind of my favorite thing.
Yeah, I have this expression. I'm pretty driven as well. It's not my expression, but I heard it. School's never out for the pro.
Yeah.
And I feel that way, man. I always want to get better at everything that I do. So I totally get it. Most likely to succeed. That's awesome.
And I loved when I was in college. I loved my philosophy classes. You know, I just always wanted to have this kind of philosophy on just living. You know, it's like, what is my philosophy? And so I just always just think of things in different ways than I think maybe other people do.
Oh, dude, you're going to be my best guest ever. This is awesome. You're exactly the guy I want to talk to right now. Okay, so what were some of the challenges early on as far as getting the band launched or defining your sound or figure out, you know, who you guys want to be and, you know, what's your marker, so to speak?
The first day we ever got this band together, Dean was our keyboard player. He's the one that made all the calls. Dean was kind of like the hub in the middle of the wheel. He knew Richie from working with him at Opryland. He knew John Rich from working at Opryland. He knew me from Mike Tucker, the drummer that I just played with. You know, so Dean was like the hub. So he called us all together and said, okay, learn these 3 songs or 3 or 4 songs, and we're going to go record a demo. So the very first day we ever met, played together, anything, we were in a little house studio recording a demo so we could try to get work on the road. So just recording like 4 cover songs. And so it was weird. That was just a very strange thing. It's not like we get together and jam and see how it sounds. It's just like we're together and we're recording immediately. So, and John Rich, I remember he was a guitar player and he didn't know how to play bass, but he had a bass or got a bass. And so he's the funniest thing ever. So like, what key? We're doing Liza Jane, and he's like, what key's it in? And he goes, somebody said A, and so he goes, where's that?
That's awesome.
And so he goes, play an A. So I played an A, and he goes, do, 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 do. There it is. So,
oh my God.
That's how much he knew. So we're sitting there in this room going, God, what did I just get myself into? You know, and it's like he doesn't even know anything about it. And then the drummer had to teach him, like, okay, when I hit this big drum on the floor, that's when you play a note.
Oh my God.
You know, the country old boom, you know, just follow the kick drum. And so that's how it started. I mean, I've been with other bands that didn't have to do that, but this band kind of started. It was a strange beginning, I think.
Yeah.
but there was so much talent in that room. It was crazy. I mean, if you think about John Rich, who went out to be big and rich and all that stuff, Apprentice. I mean, he's been on all that stuff. I mean, he's one of the most talented people I've ever been around. He hears a song once and just knows it. Richie, one of the amazing singers in country music, you know, we got lucky to get him involved. He plays piano, keyboard, guitar and keyboard. Dean, same thing, guitar, keyboard, harmonica. I mean, there was a lot of talent in that room. And just the fact that we held it together for this long is, quite frankly, kind of amazing. But
it is amazing. What
are the odds of just putting 5 random people that were from Texas and lived in Nashville in a room and said, here, record 4 songs and go work? And so that was the biggest. So it was like stages. So the biggest thing at first was just to get good. Right. Some of the guys were newer than others. Some had more experience. And so I remember we would rehearse down at the Nashville Musicians Union. They had a little room there that you could rehearse in for free if you were in the Musicians Union. And I was the only one in the band that was in the union because I had to be when I was with Canyon.
Okay.
Because that's how we got paid for all the TNN shows and all that stuff was through the union. So anyway, it was just, I remember we'd be in there 3 or 4 days a week when we first started, just rehearsing for free. And all these session guys would come in and get their checks from sessions and stuff. I'm sure they thought, who are these horrible people, you know, and they're playing cover songs.
That's hilarious. I love that story, man. Where's A?
he just slid up till it sounded right, and oh, there it is.
Yeah, that would be like the great. If you had that on video, that would be such a good start of like the documentary on the band, And then the next scene would be like you guys playing in front of 200,000 people or something like that.
Yeah, John was just one of those freaky talents. I mean, he just picked up bass in a day, and he was our bass player from then on. It was just crazy.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you, country's changed so much over the years, and you guys have done a really good job adapting to that. Have the fans changed?
Oh, well, they're getting older because we've been around for 30 years. I think everything changes constantly. I mean, when we first started playing cover songs in bars, it was different then. And then country music, I think, evolved to where when we had a record deal and we were putting out songs, I think it was different. And then as soon as kind of we did our thing and we're on the downhill slide, there's new stuff coming up. I think every 10 years, it really kind of goes through a pretty significant change. Some of that too is, country got so big, it started becoming pop music. Yeah. And it started not just the sound of it, but it started the whole thing about pop music. They want to get young eyeballs, 16 to 20 year olds or 16 to 22 year olds.
Yeah.
And I think that's where country went, because back in the 70s, country was your parents' music.
Absolutely.
And then 80s, it kind of got a little bit more mainstream. 90s with Garth Brooks and all that, it got really mainstream. Mm-hmm. But then somehow, somewhere along the line, right during us or right after us, it really became just all about kids. Yeah. And so like, trying to get kids' eyeballs. So all the songs now are about things teenage kids are about, drinking and trucks and girls and all that stuff. Which it's funny. It's totally, that to me is the biggest difference, is the subject matter is more just geared to young people.
That's
more
interesting.
So. Yeah. I'm sure there's always outliers.
Yeah. But I think the outliers, physically and aesthetically, they look much older as well. They're like, when you look at you guys, it's like, you don't think, oh, these are a bunch of old dudes. The guys that are playing to the outliers, as you call them, you look at them and you say, oh, there's like an elderly component to that performance and to their vibe as well.
Yeah. There's always, I think in every era, there's always just the cream of the crop. There's some really good acts with really great songs, and it's just different. I don't listen to much country music anymore, honestly, but every now and then I hear something. I heard a Margaret Price song. It's like, oh, that's really good. That's okay. That's good stuff. Because it's not just truck songs. There's some meaning. A lot of the, I don't even think of anything. Midland had a great first album. I thought, loved a lot of the music on there. So there's always good stuff out there. It's just a matter of finding it.
Yes, for sure, man.
But luckily, people still like to come see us and play our old songs. So
yeah, well, you guys have 30 years of cataloging, man. It's pays off.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific, like as far as how you guys, and I'm not looking for like inside stuff, but how you make decisions or like strategies that you've used to keep the relationships intact for so long? Because it is, like I said, most marriages don't last that long.
I think we've had to learn, and the hard way,
Yeah.
When you are a band and you do start having success, there's a point where you're not really responsible for it anymore. At first, it feels like it's all you because you're the one recording the song and all this. But after the record label gets it and there's a machine, I think you kind of just you're just a cog in the wheel in a way. They've got their promotions department. They've got all the radio people that are constantly bombarding radio stations to play it. They got publicists. You've got all these people. And so after a point, you're kind of just a commodity. And I think that was probably one of the hardest parts for me, is when we were big, you could never just enjoy it because you were just constantly worried about the next, you didn't want to be a one-hit wonder, so you need another hit. What's the next hit? So it was always, you're just focused on the next thing, and you weren't really in control of it anymore. There was all the surrounding machinery around it forcing you. And so it just felt like you were just kind of floating in this sea of this blob moving forward. And it was good. It was moving forward and moving up for us most of the time. But it was still very disjointing. Like, there's a lot of disconnect, I think. And I think that was probably our hardest time as a band, staying together keeping everybody on the same page, because Richie was writing with these really monster songwriters, and they were writing great songs, too many for us to cut. So they were having to go out and try to get cuts for him and stuff. And so his focus became more on the songwriting side for a while. We all started having families and kids around the same time. So that was kind of another thing pulling at us. And so that was probably the hardest time, just to try to keep it all together, was during that heyday in a way.
Did you guys have to, you know, like in any relationship, you always, unless you somehow have some incredible parents and skill sets, you got to learn how to communicate.
Yeah, that was difficult. And sometimes, you know, because at certain points in the band, I mean, when John was in the band, we had 3 type A personalities. You know, me and Keith were always kind of like the go with the flow guys, but, you know, 3 guys were just very opinionated, and they, you know, they would butt heads. And everybody in this band has butted head at some point, you know, butted heads. Now we know all of our buttons. We know how to give them space. We just do these things intuitively anymore. But back then we had to go through crap and, you know, fights and stuff like that. So there were some really tense times.
Yeah.
Not a lot of fun, and we'd have to have what we called them come to Jesus meetings, you know, where if one person was getting, you know, feeling like they were just being left out or put out or upset or not, whatever, having their voice heard, we just have to kind of try to get everybody on the same page.
That's cool.
And it's funny, we would do these at truck stops in the middle of the night. We would seriously go meet at a truck stop. We did it a couple times and just, you know, try to, because I mean, it was getting to the point now where felt like we're about to explode and implode and not be a band anymore. So we'd have to come to Jesus meeting and say, look, we got a really good thing going. We need to try to focus and get back on the right track. And we did it a couple times.
That's great. You know, somebody once said to me, I wish I remembered who, because it was a very intelligent, accurate quote. It said, you never have fighting in a band until you succeed.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, he said you never, and then once you succeed, I think it might have been Dan Baird. No, it was somebody else. But it's very true.
Yeah.
You know, so it sounds like you guys were really committed to the team.
Deep down, we all totally were. Yeah. I mean, we would get scattered and spread out and pulled different directions, but I think it all came back to the team every so often.
It has to.
Oh, yeah.
It has to make it work that long.
And I think, you know, at some point, you know, I'm sure some people are thinking, you know, they're the most important part of it or whatever.
Sure.
But I think really it comes down to, it doesn't even matter who the most important part is. It matters that when we're all in the same room playing music, it comes out bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. 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 That's gotta be tough as far as feeling like a cog in the wheel, because you kill yourself, you know, and you work so hard, and then it's, you kind of like like you said, you feel like it almost doesn't matter at a certain point.
Well, you know, the record label's wanting such and such thing. The manager maybe wanting this, you know, it's just, you just feel like there's a lot of angling and things going on. And then just the whole subjective nature of what we do. When you're putting out music to the masses, you could pour your heart and soul into it and put it out and not sell. And you're like, oh, that's awful. And then another song you didn't think would do anything is now a huge hit, and you're playing it for the rest of your lives, you know, like
you're stuck playing it.
So it's just crazy that all these things, you know, it's so subjective. I used to make jokes that I loved emptying the dishwasher, because I could look at it, I could take all the stuff out and put it where it goes, and then when I look at it again, it's done. There's no subjectivity about it. It's just done. I used to crave objectivity, because everything in my whole career was subjective.
I get that.
And it's kind of hard to be grounded. You have to look for things to ground you when it's that way.
What do you do? What do you look for? Like, what do you do to like,
I empty the dishwasher.
Keep your shit together.
Mow the yard, empty the dishwasher.
You must love because in the yard, at least you got straight lines.
Straight line. Seriously, mowing the yard is another one of my Zen things that I just, when I get out there, I don't listen to music or anything. I don't know. It's just very Zen. It's like, you know, raking little Zen gardens with the gravel. It's just,
no, I could definitely understand that, man, because especially you're a thinker and you like, mental challenges, and this is not a challenge. It's nothing you can think and work as hard as you want. It's out of your hands. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I get that. It doesn't feel like.
Sometimes no matter how hard we worked, there wasn't a direct correlation to how good we thought it was or how hard we worked. It was all just part of the machine and how big the record label was at the time, how much pull they had, or that we happened to be nominated for one of the award shows and got to perform on there. It's like, and I felt like there were probably a lot of missed opportunities in our career, because as big as we got, I feel like maybe sometimes our management didn't take advantage of certain opportunities that we had. When Amaze was huge, it went up and then it kind of came down. I see some people get to that high point and stay there. And so, I don't know. I think we're always more critical of ourselves anyway. So we always look back and go, if we would have just done this or that, it would even be better. But at the same time, when it's happening, you're just trying to hang on for the ride because it's all moving way faster than you ever imagined.
Yeah, it's but I could understand that though, having that first, because if you're seeing a manager and then you start thinking, well, look, let's face it, they don't have the same vested interest in us that we do. They have a vested interest, but not the way we're going to give that extra 100 to 100. We'll go from 100% to 110% to push something over. Will somebody else do that? Probably not. No matter how good they are, with a rare exception, maybe if they share your last name and you're related or something like that. Right. But what are you going to do about it?
Well, and you have to have aligned incentives, I guess, is what I think of them as aligned incentives.
Yeah.
So if your management is only interested in making money off your touring, that's going to be his incentive, is to go put you on the road all the time, which may not be the best incentive for you as a band. You may want to, do something else to promote yourselves or something like that, but they may not make money off that. So they're going to want to put you on the road. So I felt like we were road dogs for a long time.
Oh, yeah. That makes a ton of sense.
And then we did kind of have to change. When Dan Huff came along, I remember he made this comment, and it was really, I look back, it really offended me at the time. But I totally get it now, and it made me change how I thought of anything or everything. But I guess he was talking to Richie and trying to sell himself to be our producer right before he started producing. He goes, I see y'all as kind of as a cover band. And I was like, really kind of offended, because I thought we were, after 2 albums and some hits, I thought we were kind of established artists in a way. But Dan kind of saw us as a cover band in that we didn't have a sound. I didn't have a sound personally. So I looked at my role and thought, what is my sound? So, and then I thought, he's exactly right. I have spent so many years, because when we would do cover songs before we ever got a record deal, we would just go play 4 and 5 nights a week at bars playing cover songs.
Sure.
And so I wanted to copy those cover songs as close as I could. So I would learn, the parts on the record, try to cop the tones, all that stuff. I wasn't trying to be myself. I was trying to be the best, because I thought if I learned from every single one of these great studio players, I'd be a better player. So I just tried to learn from every one of them and learn how to do it. But when he said that to me, I thought, he's right. I don't really have, Jimmy Olander from Don Mario, total is his own sound. Yeah. No one would ever mistake someone else for him. But I didn't have that. So I was thinking, okay, so I made a concerted effort to figure out what my sound was. So by the time we'd done a couple Dan albums, I feel like that's when I could really start recognizing my playing.
That's great.
As my playing. But it was really a conscious effort and just work to do that. I had to just quit learning songs for a large period.
Not that it matters, but did Dan notice that at any point in time?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He had such high standards for everything. And some of that, he told me a story about working with Mutt Lange on a Shania record, and how he spent like a week doing eighth notes, like just tight muted eighths. Said it just took forever because he was so nitpicky about it.
Mutt was. Yeah, I've heard that.
And so he wasn't that nitpicky on me, but after starting the first record we did with Dan, from then on, I learned quickly. If I want to be on this record, I need to be that good. So
that's cool.
And I was never going to be as good as Dan, but just as far as playing the parts. And so every now and then we would have a bit where I remember we were recording "Walking to Memphis," the Mark Cohn song for our Greatest Hits record. And so that was we'd done 2 albums, and then we did the greatest hits. So I've done 2 albums with Dan. So I'd worked with him some and improved, on my way up. And we were in there, and this one guitar part on the tracking, we were doubling. So it was just me and him tracking with the drums and all that. But we were doubling this one part. And Dan was never really super forthcoming with compliments. I mean, he was very, he would get the best out of you. He knew how to get the best out of you. But, he didn't just go around just complimenting me all the time. Or I didn't feel like he did me, because I was really hard on myself. So anyway, so he solos up me and his guitar. And so here's all these people in the studio. I know it's always the most embarrassing things when he hits solo button in the studio, especially full of studio guys and stuff. So he soloed mine and his parts, and it sounded so good. I mean, I was locked in right with him. And so he didn't even say anything. He just looked over and he just kind of grinned and shook his head. I was like, that made my year, I think, for that period of time.
That was maybe the best compliment Dan ever gave anybody.
And then not long after that, we did a Christmas record, and I did a solo, and we would track all the stuff, and then I would come back later, and Dan would be comping vocals, and then I'd come in for a few hours and do solos and stuff. So we were doing solos, and Dan would be running back from room to room, comping vocals or checking stuff, and then coming back in to listen to my solos. And I was doing this. We did the Eagles, "I'll Be Home for Christmas," or no, "Please Come Home for Christmas."
Sure.
Kind of bluesy thing. So I was like, we had done like 3 or 4 solos that day, and because I tried to do them all in a short amount of time. And I go, I just don't know what to do on this, And he goes, well, just play some of that Texas blues stuff you do, because he knew I was from Texas and loved Stevie Ray Vaughan and all that stuff. So I go, oh, okay. So I did it, and he kind of worked with me in a couple spots. He just kind of said, what if you did such and such here? So anyway, I did the solo kind of. Most of it was off the cuff, but with a couple little tweaks that he did. And a few weeks later, we were at a party or something, and I ran into him. And he goes, hey, I've been listening to that Christmas song we did. He goes, I still love that solo you did on that Please Come Home song.
Oh, man.
That was those 2 things alone. I mean, I love Dan to death. Anyway, I think he's super talented and great at what he does, and he's a monster player and singer.
Yeah.
But those 2 things made me feel like, okay, I've at least gotten to this level where I can feel competent. I'm still not as good as some of these guys, but I did a couple things that are good. Yeah,
but you noticed the improvement, which is always a good feeling, man, because that's a really good thing. And
I mean, there's some players that I just think I've always felt like I've been equal left and right brains, because I'm kind of nerdy and think about stuff too much. And then I also try to turn that off and play and just be emotional. But I always feel like I'm not creative enough sometimes. So it's just always nice to get a little bit of validation here and there. I see people like Guthrie Trapp, Keith Urban, those people just ooze music. I mean, they can just think something and it just comes out and it's great. But I'm not that. I have to work at it a little bit more.
But you don't know what they're doing. They may be feeling the same way.
They may be.
You just don't know. Because I always I'm pretty hard on myself. So I've come to some realizations, and I honestly, doing this show has helped me, because I've learned you never know what the other guy's thinking, because he may be beating himself up 10 times worse than I do. And he could be tortured, and I should be feeling empathy for that guy. I mean, seriously, it's like weird. You just don't know what's going on. And just because someone, looks like you just don't know. Yeah. But that's cool, man. That's a good story.
I remember back when we were, if you have time for another
of course.
Story. But we were at one of the award shows, and I don't even remember where it was. But at these award shows, there's never enough backstage room. So everybody's kind of doubled up. So, I mean, we were pretty big at the time. It was either after I'm Already There or Maze. So we were pretty big. But I always just look for things that inspire me. So at the time, there's a band called The Ranch that came out. And I heard their first Ranch record, and I was like, oh my God, this would change country music. If they would just play these songs, this would change country music for the better, because I loved it so much. And Keith Urban was the lead singer, the guitar player for The Ranch. So I would go see them anytime they play around town. And I'd be waiting in line to go see them. And I met Keith, and then eventually we ended up at the same management company with Lonestar. But, I'd be waiting outside in the line. I remember Keith walked by at one point. He goes, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" I go, "I'm waiting to go see you." And he drags me in the back. He's always super nice to me.
That's nice.
So we were at one of these award shows, and we were sharing dressing room, and Keith was sharing the dressing room with us. And it was one of my favorite moments ever, because the whole award show, I mean, to me, that's all kind of, it's fun, it's exciting, but I mean, if you don't win, honestly, half the room, 2/3 of the room are losers. So the best part to me is just hanging out. Yeah. We were in the dressing room, and the dressing room was almost like, it was like one of the sports arenas. So they had like the big tiled shower area in the back. And so we're in there, and I hear Keith, he's in the shower room, basically with his acoustic guitar, just sitting on a folding chair, playing and singing, and just singing ranch songs and stuff. And of course I know the songs. So I'm back there, and he's playing. I'm just watching him. It sounds so great because all the reverb from the tile, and there's a couple other hangers on, but it was just so cool to sit here, and then I would kind of sing harmonies of some of the ranch songs that I knew.
That's
it was
cool.
just, I was like, man, this is cool. And then he became Keith Urban, a
Right.
huge star after that. But, you know, I knew him when he was just the guy sitting in the shower, you know, playing great songs and singing great and playing like crazy. I mean, I've always been a fan of his. And as a human, he's one of the nicest and most respectful people I've ever seen. So
those are a nice moment, though, that you know, those are the kind of moments that this career gives you, that you like, man, that probably a lot more than, like you said, the actual ceremony.
Absolutely. I mean, that was my highlight of the night, was that. And we've had a couple of those. I mean, there was a friend of mine that had this friend's actually the first person that played me the ranch record. He had a friend that worked for a publishing company, and as a favor for that friend, this is kind of convoluted, there's an artist named Jude Cole. I don't know if you're familiar with Jude Cole.
Yeah.
Guitar player, singer back in the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
He had a song called Start the Car I think Travis Tritt re-recorded Start the Car.
Okay. I know
and so
that name.
As a payback for this publishing girl giving Jude Cole cuts, he came to play at her house as like a favor. And so all these people, friends of hers and friends of friends, are in this person's house. I don't know who she is, but my friend Scott, brought me. And so we're sitting there watching Jude Cole just play acoustic, some of his songs that I've been a fan of for years. And there's Keith Urban sitting right next to me. There's pictures somewhere of me and Keith sitting there, and there's a big, huge plate of chocolate chip cookies. And we're just sitting Indian style on the floor watching Jude Cole play in this lady's house. And so those are the kind of things, like, what are the coolest things that have happened to you over your career? Like, that's one of the ones that sits in there. I just remember sitting next to Keith Urban watching Jude Cole play songs, and everybody just being floored. It was so good.
That is cool, man. That's
that's the kind of stuff you can't script. It just happens, and you're just lucky to be there.
Yeah, that is what you feel good about 20 years or 15 years later, because those award stuff and any kind of accolades are like really transient, man. I know it's not, unless you are like, I think if you're ego fed, that like sticks out for you. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm not like that. I have plenty of friends that are. I mean, but if you're not, it's really not
well, there's nothing wrong with winning. They're great when you can win them.
Right. Absolutely. But I mean, like, just the whole pomp and circumstance of it is, Yeah. Thank you, man. That's a great story.
I got lots of weird little stories. Sorry. Didn't mean to.
No, that's great, man. Share them all throughout, please. Cause that's what I enjoy hearing, man. Okay. So you have a really successful business, selling Kemper profiles on your website, mbritt.com. How did you first get into this, and like, what made you how did the decision to start selling profiles even come about, or was that a thing then even?
It wasn't really a thing. There was one person or one company selling profiles. When I first got my Kemper, there was a place called the Amp Factory. It was Andy over in England was doing the Amp Factory profiles, and I bought some of them. And I bought them because I wanted a matchless. I had sold my matchless, so I wanted matchless sounds in my Kemper. And I got them, and I was like, it just doesn't have any body. It doesn't have the thing. So I spent most of the first, year of having the Kemper, I was trying to just profile everything I could get my hands on, so I'd have a good amp collection going. So,
so like, you borrow your friends' amps and.
Yeah, absolutely. My buddy that owns Rocket Pedals had a big amp collection. Sean Tubbs loaned me a couple. Just all my buddies. Just
you're in the right place, man.
Yeah, totally. And I had a few amps too, so I profiled all my own, and profile Chris's, Sean's, Brian's, they would just come over to my house and bring their amps, and we'd hang and make noises and stuff. And after a while, I had decent, 20, 30 really good amp collection things. And then my buddy Brian got a Kemper, and so I sent him the files that I'd made, and he said something like, "Man, these are way better than the ones that come stock or whatever." And I don't remember who suggested selling it, but I was like, nobody's going to buy from me. Nobody knows who I am. And eventually, after hearing it 2 or 3 times, because every time somebody else would get a Kemper, I would give them my stuff, and they go, "Man, these are great." And so I don't know. I just know I just made them for myself. So eventually I thought, well, I'll just put them out, put a pack out, and see what it sells. And there was another guy, Michael Wagner, was actually selling profiles too. Okay. So there were two.
The producer, Michael Wagner? Yeah. Okay.
And so I didn't know how much there was no market really back then. I didn't know how much to charge or anything. So I just put it out, put a blurb on the Kemper forum, and then it just kind of took off for a little bit. And then somehow Pete Thorne did a video, and I don't even remember how that even happened. He contacted me because Kemper was wanting him to do a video for them, but he knew it needed profiles. And so like some of the stock stuff wasn't up his alley or whatever. So I sent him just some of my profiles, and he liked them so much that he basically did a whole video for Kemper to show the Kemper off, but it was showing off my profiles. And that was really what kind of got my foot in the door. Because once Pete starts talking about Michael Britt and Michael Britt profiles, it really kind of took off from there.
Yeah, because he's got a big base.
Yeah.
People. Wow.
And I didn't ask him to do it. I just literally sent him profiles to try it so he could do a Kemper video.
How long have you been doing this now?
The company started, put in my first pack in September of 2014. So 6 years.
So 6 years. Well, how many profiles have you made?
I don't even know.
Ballpark.
I've probably done 200 amps, and each one's 10 to 30. So it's, I don't know.
So somewhere between 2,000 and 6,000.
Yeah.
So you say 10 to 30, like explain what you mean by that.
So if it's just a Tweed Pro, volume and tone or volume, bass and treble, there's only so many different settings you can get out of it. And then I can throw pedals in before it or whatever. But so if it's a really simple amp with not a lot of controls, it may only be 5 to 10, profiles.
Sure.
That'll pretty much cover most of the sounds the amp will get out of it.
Right.
Now, if it's a Mesa Boogie with 2 channels and switches everywhere, it could take up to 30 profiles just to kind of do it. Not to say they're all good, I'll go through. I'm really picky about what I put out too. I don't just run profiles and put them out. I'll make profiles and live with them, keep checking back on,
Yeah.
Like check the oven, make sure how brown it is. So, and check back, and then I'll do lots of culling. So I've got people will probably think I'm crazy. I'm a Luddite when it comes to taking notes. So these are all notebooks of profiling, and it's just page after page of, settings.
Wow.
Like where the knob settings are.
Is there a way you could digitize? You got to have Kemper make you a program that you could because and then you just call it up by Fender Pro or whatever, man.
It's such a mess though. It's like, it would take me a year just to go through all these, but I did start like this book. I started writing all the amp names out on the outside. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
Or I can at least say, okay, this has the Maz Junior and the Car Lincoln in it or whatever. But
you know what, man? You should sell.
Very tedious process.
You should sell like your quote rejects. You know why? Because it is subjective. So you're culling stuff out, and like you might be some alt guitarist in Minnesota's like dying for that pedal.
Well, it happens all the time. Well, not all the time, but like I have had somebody say, "Hey, I love this profile that you have in pack 2 or whatever, but if there's only 2 of them in it, do you have any extras?" And I'll look, and if I have them still on the computer somewhere, I'll send them. But not very often, but.
You can make like the reject series. And no, seriously, man, have you seen his reject series? That's really good. I'm serious. You know that because it's people are so subjective. How do you package these? You package them by like genre or just by amp?
I have a theory, or there's a reason I do what I do.
Yeah.
at first, well, my first pack was just conglomeration of everything. It's kind of like just all the amps I could get my hands on. So it was very kind of just a cornucopia of stuff. And it wasn't really thought out. You know, it's just, these are what I had. And so I kind of like those because they're going to have amps in there that you wouldn't have bought. If you just said, okay, here's a Quidley amp, you know, go get this Quidley profile. I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I love having hidden gems that people may not have ever bought, but they'll listen to it and go, oh yeah, that's really good. There's a Mojave Peacemaker in one. You know, it's just these random amps. And so I like doing just groups of amps like that.
Right.
Plus I don't like pissing off manufacturers. And I just feel like it would be not the coolest thing in the world to do all Dr. Z amps, you know. Sure. You know, and all of them in one, just because, you know, if one shows up here and there, and still, Kemper profiles are not the real amp. And I'm not trying to kill amp sales in any way. In fact, I think I've heard from a lot of people that, especially these bizarre amps that nobody will ever find in a store to try out, I've heard of people buying these kind of random boutique amps because they like the profile of them.
Well, I'll tell you what I thought of, and I've been running a marketing company 22 years, so take this however you want. I would contact all these companies, put a coupon in there, and then you get an affiliate sale.
Yeah.
Because to me, you're spurring sales of amps.
Yeah.
That's immediately the first thing I thought, man.
I don't know how much that is, because it seems like the people that are buying Kempers aren't necessarily the people that are wanting to buy just 2 amps. Okay. But at the same time, there's people that use both because it's a tool. You know, I love amps. I mean, I'm always looking for the best amp in the world, you know, and I've got a few really good ones. So, but I still like the Kemper. I use the Kemper for work because that's my tool. Yeah. But if I'm just sitting around playing, most of the time I'm playing through an amp. Right. Right. I'm going to ask you about your favorites. Don't worry. I promise you. Okay. But that's really cool how you came across that, man. So my packs are just kind of, and then after 3 or 4 bigger packs, then I kind of thought, well, maybe do some smaller ones for people that don't want to spend $30 or $40 at one time, just a little $10 pack. So there's a Tweedy one that's a couple Tweed amps. But really? Yeah. That's cool. There's a Tweedy pack that's got a 56 Tweed Pro, a Tweed Twin. I think there's a Blues Junior and Pro Junior. Pro Junior. There's like 4 or 5 Tweed type circuits. And I don't mind doing that kind of stuff. I just don't like just honing in on one brand. I just think that's a little bit disingenuous because you're not really buying their amps. But I also don't want to ever piss them off and make them, you know, hate the process, you know, because anybody could do it. There's people putting up free rigs all day long of stuff. So, and I'm not trying to capitalize on them because half the sound of the profiles in the Kemper, or half the sound of my profiles aren't really the amp. Half the sound that people are hearing are my mics, my speaker cabinet, my speaker choice, all that. You know, you could take the same whatever amp profile and it would sound totally different if you're not using my mics with my cab and all that. Do you? So I'm assuming the amp and part of it's not. You probably use the same exact speaker cabinet though for everything. That's one of the things that I started doing because, and there's a big reason for that. I use the same cabinet most of the time so I can switch profiles live without it being totally disheartening, you know, screwing up our sound guy. Plus, I came from a humongous rig that I used to have a Bradshaw rig with 4 heads in it, but it all shared the same cab. Right. So I just kind of got used to hearing all these heads through one cab. As long as the cab you like, it sounds good. But I found that if I did a Vox with Blues in its actual stock cab, it would sound so drastically different than a Marshall going through a 412 that I couldn't just switch between them live because it was way too much of a tonal shift. Soundman would go nuts because those big tonal shifts, I mean, it's the difference between having a really big guitar sound like an AM radio. Yeah, for sure. That low end shift will just move in it and your guitar will just disappear sometimes. And man, since most of what we do is play live, everything I started out doing was live. So I wanted all the amps through one cab so it would be consistent enough to switch. All right. I'm going to ask you what that cab is. Not now, but I'm going to ask you what it is. I think as it relates to what I think you're doing a good thing as far as like you've got this ethical parameter or code that you're working in. And I always think that's important to do, man. Even if it doesn't matter to somebody else,
it's like easier to do shit, like feel good about what you're doing when you have something
Well, that's
like that.
one of the reasons I don't do a lot. They have what's called direct profiles, which is basically you take a direct box right out of the speaker output of the amp and profile that. But that takes no art, no skill. Anybody can plug a DI into the back of the amp.
Sure.
And that to me is more stealing the amp tone than what I'm doing, because I'm actually altering it with my mics and all that stuff. But the direct profiles, I mean, anybody can just go buy an amp from Guitar Center, stick a DI behind it, profile it, and return it or whatever. There's just no art or skill to that.
Yeah.
And another thing is too is I don't do many new amps. I try not to. I'll try to find used stuff or stuff that's not made anymore, vintage stuff that you just can't get anymore. That's the kind of stuff I enjoy profiling, because I'm not just ripping off some guy that's still trying to make money on it.
Yeah, I get it. Also, I'll tell you right now, and I have no incentive to say this, but your profiles are very competitively priced, because I've seen other profiles from other companies, man, and they're really super expensive. You know, I don't know the quality of them. And and now that I know you, man, like the integrity you're putting into it, I know you're getting a good value if somebody buys that, you know.
I just don't want anybody to have a reason not to buy them. You know, I know it's tight for guitar players no matter what, even if COVID wasn't here, you know, it's not like
it's not like you're overpaid. Guitar players has never listened to most overpaid professions.
Exactly. But I always think if it's too high priced, then to me that just makes people steal it more. You know, it's like, I don't know, share it, download it, it's kind of steal it. But if it's reasonably priced, that gives them no reason to say, "Oh, I'll just buy them," than going to try to rip them off from somebody.
I think also having, as a business guy coming in and now being in the music business, you know, for almost 3 years, over 3 years now, and this is not a butter up comment, but the ethics of musicians in general, specifically as it relates to intellectual property, musicians are pretty sensitive to that. And I think the pros, you know, I'm not saying that there's some, you know, kid, nothing against kids, but some young person who is not out working or whatever has no problem with downloading, because that's a culture he or she has grown up in. Musicians in general are pretty sensitive to intellectual property, though.
The Kemper community for the longest time has been just super protective. So like, I mean, I'd see the people in the Kemper forum like crucifying someone for saying they shared their, you know, some third party, you know, profiles or whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, that they kind of police themselves in a lot of ways. And I just think that's good. And there's people bootlegging my stuff. I mean, I'll get emails saying, "Hey, this guy in Italy is selling your profiles." I'm like, oh, you know, I can file a claim, but nothing's going to come from it. But
no, you know what you could do? Set up Google alerts.
Yeah.
And then you'll see them, because I have marketing intellectual property out there. And there's nothing you can.
I could probably learn a lot from you, actually.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, man. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they have, this is what's really funny. There are people that have businesses set up selling illegally they're like a depot. And I'll see like marketing programs that I made years ago being sold for like 10%. They're illegal. They're selling my shit. It's like hilarious.
Yeah. There's people all over eBay, and especially overseas, that it's not just mine, you know, the Tone Junkies, mine, or they're all just be all in one big bundles, you know.
Yeah. For like $30.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's terrible, man.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Well, I think it's a good thing you're doing, man.
Well, I think karma, you know,
yeah,
is a real thing. I don't ever want to have a negative thing. And the thing about this is, like, again, I'm in a field where it's all subjective. You know, I still get people. I don't expect everybody to like my sounds. It's just impossible.
Yes, of course.
But at the same time, you know, it's still a subjective thing. I'm just glad that so many people do like the tones I end up getting.
Yeah.
I make them really for me. I'm not trying to go out and please anybody. I just plug in an amp. If I like it, I'll put it out.
You should do a documentary on those books that you got. I can't believe that's where all your data is. Oh my God.
I tried to do it on a computer, and I don't even know where that computer went. So yeah, but it's just,
that is incredible. You need to like scan that or something at least, you know?
Yeah, here's an EVH 5153. I've got all the gain settings, what pedals I used on it. My 72 Marshall I've profiled a million times, but it's like, I'll have to find some kid that has nothing else to do with their time.
Yeah.
transcribe those or put them together.
Absolutely, man. It's good that you're so detailed and that, like you said, the sort of nerdy component of you, because a guy you've got the perfect situation where you got the creative, the music, and the nerdy part, because it takes both. You couldn't do that as efficiently as you're doing without both, man.
Well, and just like everything we've been talking about, just being in the right place at the right time. But
yeah.
Early in my career, when you were first starting out playing bars, you're running your own sound. So, I mean, I had to learn how to set up a monitor system. I had to learn how to EQ monitors to get feedback out. For back in the day, there were no ear monitors. So it was literally speaker cabinets. I call them feedback generators, sitting right in front of you. Yeah. And having to ring those out and learning frequencies. So over a span of 10 years, playing in everywhere, every bar, every whatever. And then once we started getting real sound men, I would literally, while they're setting up and tuning the PA, I'm back there watching them. What are you doing? And so I'm learning my frequencies. And so,
right.
And I never thought I'm learning my frequencies so I could learn how to program stuff on Kempers when it comes out.
Of course.
I need to learn what these frequencies are. So if I need to adjust anything, I'll know where to look.
That's awesome.
That trained my ear all those years. So all those things led up to this. I mean, the things I'm able to do now is because of all my experience in learning how to ring out monitors in a club, in a smoky bar, and then learning what sound men do to get the PA sounding right and all that. I use all that stuff, especially with IRs, man. That's the biggest tool I use. IRs is my ear. So
okay.
An IR is an impulse response.
Yeah.
It basically takes the place of a speaker cabinet in all these digital modelers. Line 6, all the Kemper, you put the whole thing in there, your whole finished product, your mic with cabs and all that goes into the Kemper. But Line 6, Fractal, and all these companies that have modelers, they give you the amp models, and you can't really change them. And they have cab models too, but if you don't want to use cab models, you can import your own IRs.
Okay.
So, and when I'm making these IRs, that's where I use all this frequency response knowledge that I have. So I can look on the graph. I've got a program so I can look at my IR on a frequency graph, and I can see if it's hitting a wall and clipping somewhere. The line's too flat. I'm like, okay, that's not right. And there's just knowing what frequencies are what, and I can hear something and I'll think, man, that sounds like it's got a lot of 2.5 in it, or really thick, wow, 500 hertz.
You could identify that.
I hear it, and then I'll look at the graph and see if I'm right, and usually I am. So
that's cool, man.
That's the kind of nerdy stuff I do.
That's cool. Yeah, you got to put that in your description. That's impressive stuff. I'm not kidding. It is. What was your childhood like, man? You grew up in Fort Worth.
I had an older brother and older sister. They were quite a bit older. I think my brother's 6 years older. My sister's 10 years older. So they were having kids by the time I was 10 years old. And so I was an uncle very early and kind of an only child after a while, because they were both married and out of the house by the time I was 10.
Sure.
So kind of, I don't remember much before.
That's how they were married. That's how they do it. And
well, yeah, both my brother and sister both got married fairly young, 18 or 20.
Yeah, that's young. Holy crap.
And some of that was probably just to get out of the house, I mean,
I get it.
There was no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no nothing back then. I mean, it was just, if you wanted to go do something, you had to actually go do it and get out. Mm-hmm. But so I was the nerdy kid in school, got a little minor scholarship to go to college. And
to UT?
University of Texas at Arlington at first. And then I went 2.5 years, and then I quit to figure out what I wanted to do, because I changed my major a couple times there. And then as I was managing drugstores, they talked me into going to drive pharmacy school. So that's when I moved to UT. But, growing up, I wasn't in a lot of trouble. I was a good student, all that stuff. It was a pretty, we didn't have a ton of money, but, it was fun. I started playing guitar when I was in 7th grade, got my first guitar.
How'd you get into that?
Really learn, just a Christmas gift. I begged my parents for a guitar, and they got a Sears, piece of junk guitar and 10-watt solid state amp.
All right.
And then my neighbors, one got a drum kit and one got a bass. And so we all got together the day after Christmas and realized we didn't know how to play our instruments. And so that became the long struggle of playing instruments. And then some kids down the street were better at guitar than me, so I lost my gig right away. And then I had to learn to play bass so I could at least be in the band. So I ended up teaching the bass player all the parts because I could pick them out from records. And that's how I learned to play guitar, just listening to records and dropping needles over and over until we called them picking them out. Now it's just learning by ear. But hey, pick out this song. And that was, because you're both picking it and trying to pick it out of the noise.
So you had an auspicious beginning as a guitar player, but you persevered.
Exactly. I think our biggest gig was at a prison. We played for some inmates at a local prison.
As young kids?
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Like, why did you let us go there?
Oh my God!
Yeah, like,
wow.
Were we allowed to go into a prison to play?
Yeah,
and it was not even. They couldn't have enjoyed it. I mean, it was like the music would be like we were hugely influenced by Rush. But it wasn't Rush quality songs. So it was like original songs that were trying to be Rush songs. It was bad.
That's wild.
I mean, it was probably great for us at the time, but looking back, they could not have played that music.
Played in a prison as a kid. Yeah. That is wild.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Man, I'm from the Bronx. That's not something I would have sent my kid into. Freaking prison in the Bronx. Good luck with that.
Funny.
Low points. What were some of the low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
Career-wise or personally, let me think.
Whatever you'd like to share.
Well, one of the toughest parts was when Richie, our lead singer in Lonestar, left the band around 2008. So he was gone for 4 years, but it was both a good and a bad thing. At the time that it was really happening, that year was just horrible. And
worse than 2020?
No. Looking back in hindsight, it wasn't that bad, but it was.
Always look for the silver line.
Tension-wise in the band, it was really rough. I think we were just in a bad place, and because Richie he thought he wanted to do something different, and we were offended and hurt and everything by that.
Yeah.
And so it was rough because we had already had dates on the books through the fall, and he told us in the spring he was leaving. So we had 6 months of shows to do with this person we knew didn't want to be there. So, and we were trying to think, okay, how are we going to make a living if he quits and we just break the band up? So, and in our arrogance, we said, no, we're going to break the band up. We'll just find somebody else to sing. And
what do you say in our arrogance?
We just didn't want to think that one person could bring us all down,
Well, I don't think
it's not arrogance really, but we just thought, to me, it's not the same band when he's not in it. So maybe in hindsight, we should have called it something different, but we'd worked for 10 years at the time or 12 years to get this far, 15 years.
Sure. And
we didn't want to just throw it away just because he didn't want to do it. So it was part arrogance, part just stubborn, we just wanted to prove that we could keep going.
Sure.
So we did. And so we got a guy named Cody to come in and sing and made a couple albums with him. And eventually Richie, came back. And that was
that awkward when he came back?
No, it was actually good. I mean, love Cody to death. Great, talented kid. But he was a lot younger than us. And it felt like he was never going to be accepted by our fans.
Yeah.
A good portion of the fans came along with us. But there were some that just thought, oh, it's not the same Lonestar. And the radio stations wouldn't touch us.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We tried to get some airplay traction with Cody singing, but they just thought, well, that's not Richie, so no.
Oh, wow.
So that was frustrating because we felt like we made some good music.
Yeah.
Despite it all. And but it was never going to fly.
Well, you're a lot of guys playing there too. It's not like, Led Zeppelin, it was, you had 3 musicians, Right. I mean, you guys are wider spread out than that.
Yeah. Yeah. We had, again, one of the things we had no control over. So it's all subjective. So you don't have so much control over your own career.
Yeah, but I can see the frustration and the, angst from that for sure, man.
So after about 4 years of just kind of beating our heads against a wall with Cody, when Richie's mentioned, we heard that, he was making kind of inroads to try to see if we wanted to do a reunion tour, because that was around our 20th anniversary. It would have been 20 years so we thought, that'd be a good thing to do. And we just had a meeting with our manager, and he was kind of like, our manager now is more like our counselor. He's the one that kind of puts out fires and keeps everybody, happy. So he's great at what he does. He was trained, or he worked at a mental institution when he was younger. And we're always saying that's his training for being our manager.
I think it's good training.
You learn to deal with many personalities. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Richie came back though, was it was all cool for everybody?
It actually was. It was.
That's great.
It was like going home. Coming home again. It was.
That's
like,
nice.
And then both of the albums we made after Richie's been back I think they're great. Of course, they still get no airplay because they're not old hits. Because that's
right.
After you reach a certain age in country music, you're just an old artist. You're not anything current. So, and it's not like pop. Cher can put out a pop song 30 years later, from the first hit, and they still embrace it, but not country music. Even Vince Gill can't get modern airplay on country music radio.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So it's just a different thing, and part of that goes to, hey, kids, we cater to kids.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I saw a country concert. I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. A band guitar player had. He's his artist. I'm not gonna say the name. It was more like my wife came, and she's from England, and she's been here a long time, but she's like really British in certain ways. And she says, "Craig, this is like disco with cowboy hats." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yes, this is exactly what it's like." So I get it, man. And everybody was going nuts. So
yeah.
And everybody was under, like my kids' age, Yeah. It was interesting.
They do great with that demographic, and they've learned how to do it, and they hit it
off the charts. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
It was stadiums out. We never got that big.
Yeah, crazy.
It was different world we grew up in.
So it worked out in the end. It was a 4-year sort of lull, but it worked out.
Yeah, I think so. It gave us the confidence to know that we're a band, not just one guy. And it gave him the confidence or whatever. I think it let him see that we're just better as a group than individually.
That's
not
cool.
better, but just bigger. It's a bigger thing. It goes beyond the four of us.
Anything else? You had something like, I thought you had something else you were going to say, and you don't have to. Any other low points?
Oh, low points. Well, just going through divorce and all that stuff and kids. And
yeah.
That's probably the toughest personal thing I've gone through, is having to tell your kids you're getting divorced and dealing with all that whole.
Yeah.
That's tough.
That is tough, man. I went through that many. My kids were very, very young, and I felt horrible, but it worked out so great. And it's really weird when you get, like, there's no manual about getting married, but it's kind of a natural thing. When you get divorced, it's like, it's so unnatural. Everything. I remember going to get an apartment. It was like, God, this is so weird, man. It's the whole thing is nutty.
So much about being an adult is just bizarre and nutty. I mean, if you think about it. Well, I remember bringing our son home from the hospital. I just could not believe they were letting us take him home. Like, do they realize how unprepared I am to be a father? They would not let me do this. The whole reason I became a musician was so I wouldn't have to grow up, so I could keep on kid. Now I'm having to grow up and be an adult.
I know, man. How old are your oldest kids now?
My son is 18,
right,
and he's in high school. He's a senior in high school, and he's getting ready to go to college. So
oh, that's good.
Most of my weeks are, well, not all day, but every day. But we're constantly looking at colleges and how much we can afford. And
how does that work now with COVID?
I don't even know. My stepson, I got remarried, so my stepson lives in Washington, and he just started school, college, but it's all online. So
I don't know how any of this stuff works. I mean,
I don't know if I could do a college online. That's just.
Well, do you have to pay? What I would be thinking, this guy cutting a check is, I'm cutting a check for X to sit in front of a computer. That right. You don't. I'll go to community college for that.
Well, and to me, my version of college experience is sitting through lectures. And
right.
I just don't know how that works, because from what I recall of college, it was a lot of learn it on your own time, learn it on your own.
100%.
But at least you had the hour and a half long lecture as a base. Now I can't imagine trying to learn it all on my own, just online. That would be tough.
Because you got to ask a question sometimes, and what do you just 300 people on a Zoom call? You can't, Yeah.
I looked back at my college transcript, and all the classes that I had that had 50 or less people in them I did like A's, maybe B, but everything that had, like, because I was at University of Texas, the chemistry classes would have 500 people in them. I mean, unbelievable. And I was like, I always did really poorly in those classes because they didn't teach you. It was really just to weed you out.
It was, especially a class like chem.
Chemistry, chem, biology, both of those were just brutal.
Yeah.
Now, the history class that always did great in, philosophy classes did great in, but yeah, some of the maths and sciences just brutal because you couldn't just do it on your own. And I remember we had this visiting professor. He was an Asian guy with a really thick accent, and he would do these, we're talking about valence electrons and all this stuff, and filling out the rings and doing it, it's all math, but it's chemistry math. And so he went through 4 slides of overhead projection slides to do one problem, and he got the answer wrong when he did it. And so he goes, "Oh, I got it wrong somewhere up here, but you don't get it wrong on test." I'm like, "Oh, I realize I'm in bad trouble here because the teacher can't even do the product, the thing that we're asked to do."
That's really bad teaching, to be honest with you, isn't it? Could you imagine like you just like play a whole song of wrong notes? Hey, that really sucked, but go by the record. The notes are right on the. That's what imagine that's what he's doing.
And I remember I went to the dean or whatever, that chemistry dean's office, and there were about 40 of us from that same class outside his office. I'm getting ready to complain that like we're trying, we had no help here. We're not even being taught how to do it right.
That's crazy.
But it was a mess. So that was when I quit.
Yeah.
When I quit college, it was right after that. I was like, I just don't know if I can do this pharmacy thing if I have to listen through that many more chemistry classes.
No, I can't blame you. That's pretty low.
That was rough.
Well, good luck with your kids, man.
Love my kids.
Yeah, good luck with your kids.
They're getting to the age where they have nothing to do with me now, so that's all.
It comes back, though. They come back.
I hope so.
They come back. Yeah, they become interested in you. And they actually listen to you. They will ask you for advice.
Really?
They will come to you, ask you.
I'll believe that when I see it.
And my sons are 30 and 28 now, and about 5 years ago they started coming to me, and I was like, I'm still blown away. They actually come to me. Hey, they'll call me in the middle of the day. Hey, you okay? Yeah, I need your advice on something. I'm like, wow, that feels so good.
That's my dream. Yeah. I would love for that to happen to me.
Oh, it feels so good.
Because I warned my kids when they were probably 12. I was like, you're gonna hit an age where your dad is stupid and you know everything. I'm warning you now. This is what's going to go into your head. And they're like, no, that's not going to happen. Of course it happened. And I reminded him, I was like, remember when I said that you were going to think your dad was stupid and you know everything? I said, this is that time.
Well, then once in a while, my son will call me and I'm like, I wonder if I should give him the wrong answer just to fuck with him and pay him back for all the times I like try to advise him properly and he completely fucked something up or ignored it and got in trouble.
Yeah.
Anyway, they'll come back.
That's the hardest thing to me is being a parent. Man, that's rough.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. Oh,
well. All right. Music. Let's talk about music and guitars for a little bit. Is there anything you haven't done yet that you'd like to do musically? Or anybody you haven't played with yet that you'd like to play with?
I'm sure there are, because every time I go see some of these cover bands that play around Nashville, because there's a place called Third and Lindsley that has some great cover bands.
Yeah.
And I'll go watch. There's a Steely Dan cover band that just is amazing. There's one called Ventura Boulevard that plays great 70s yacht rock stuff, but like the really good stuff. I don't know. I see that and I go, man, I would love to play in something like that just for fun. And then I'd realize, God, I would have to bone up so much on major 7 chords and all that 70s chord progression stuff. But and some of that Steely Dan stuff is just crazy combination chords and stuff. But
is that Jerry McPherson's band?
No, he does the Eaglemaniacs, or he's one of the Eaglemaniacs, but I've seen them up there too. Tom Hemby plays for a couple of these cover bands.
Okay.
Chris Cotros plays in the Steely Dan one with him. Randy Nations is a guy that plays downtown on Broadway all the time, but he plays in the Ventura Boulevard. Jim Frazier plays keys and guitars and some of them. There's a Toto cover band that's really good. I mean, there are so many good players. I would never have a chance, but so when you say, is there something, I would love to just do some different stuff, because being in Lonestar is great. I'm not complaining, but you always want, the grass is always greener somewhere else. Yeah. So I just always want to play with somebody else that's doing something different, only because I've been playing the same 30 songs for 30 years.
Well, man, let's put it out, right? Because there's a lot of guys. This show is biggest audience, I think, in Nashville. So let's put it out there. If you are a guitar
player, ELO cover band or Cake cover band, I'll learn some Cake songs and some ELO songs.
Great. Anybody out there listening to this? Go to mbrit.com and connect with Michael, man. And, you know.
But only for fun, you know, that's just fun. I'm never a career thing, but.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, that would be fun. And there's always people I would love to play with. I've gotten to meet so many of my heroes, though. Jimmy Olander's a friend of mine.
He was on my show here, yeah.
I met the Britt brothers, you know. I'm big, huge fans of theirs. And I don't know. I'll say, hey, cuz, every time I see one of them. I bought Tom a drink at one of the restaurants in town. I saw him. So
you saw who? Oh, Tom?
Yeah.
He's so funny.
Years ago.
Such a funny guy.
Yeah, he is.
All right. So tell me, what's your go-to guitar? You got some beautiful looking guitars there, man, Michael. What's your go-to right now? And what other two would round out your top three?
So I've got two go-tos. It depends on if I'm working at home or going on the road. So My home guitar is this Tom Anderson Hollow T. So this is what I'm using almost 90% of my profiling with. This is kind of like my reference guitar.
Yeah.
And it sounds good through no matter what I play it through. So it kind of makes the amp sound better to me when I'm playing it. But it's just it's an ash body with alder body ash top. And it's hollow. It's got hollow chambers in it.
Is that an ebony neck or rosewood? I can't see it.
It's rosewood, but it's really dark.
Yeah, it looks great, man.
Yeah, it's really tight grain. It's almost like ebony, but it's a rosewood.
And he's got the steel frets on those.
This one does have stainless steel frets. It didn't when I first got it, but he upgraded me at one point over the career. I've actually had a big ding in it. It broke the top.
Oh.
There was a mishap on stage once, and so you can kind of see the cracks from where he finished and he fixed and refinished the top. This guitar is the top. When he refinished it, he did it in a 2-tone burst.
Looks
but it was actually kind of a 3-tone burst, so it's different. This has a little bit of red in it.
Oh yeah, you can see. I would never notice unless you pointed out. But yes,
when he refinished it, it only got 2 colors instead of the red. So it's kind of unique, and it's got a nice. He doesn't like flame maple. Tom doesn't use flame maple much, but this one actually has some grain in the neck.
Yeah,
which is very rare. So that's my main home guitar. And then anytime you'll see any Lonestar shows, you'll see this.
Yes, that's one I've seen. So tell me about that one. That's another Tom Anderson.
And they were made within 10 days of each other. 11/10/01 and 11/16/01. So
wow.
6 days apart they were built, and I got them in totally different areas. The Hollow T I got in Nashville from a place called Guitar Heaven, and I got it in 2001. This one I got the next year in 2002, but this was in Manny's Music up in New York City.
Oh, sure.
And so after I got that one, I was trying to find
2001.
I got it in 2002.
Oh, okay. This is not. It's not around anymore.
Oh, I know. Sad.
Yeah, nothing's there, man.
So I called Roy at Tom Anderson Guitars, and I said, I'm looking for a Cobra with 3 P90s. And so he looked through his stock, and he goes, "There's so and so has one here, and Manny's has one." He goes, it's been there for over a year. They might cut a deal on it. Let me talk to him. So he talked to him, and I guess he said, hey, if you sell it for such and such, we'll make this other whatever for you or whatever. So he made a kind of a deal with them.
Oh, that's cool.
So I sight unseen, they sent me one picture of it, and I bought this over an email basically, and it's been my number one guitar ever since.
What made you want that guitar? Because it's definitely not a conventional telly.
I don't know if I saw somebody with a 3 pickup or if I just saw an ad or what, but I thought, that would be great because I want a P90, but I also like having Strat sounds. And then the Cobra, I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Anderson guitars at all.
I had one for a little while, but no.
So the Cobra model is Gibson scale. So this is slightly shorter scale. It's not a Fender scale length, even though it's a Fender type shape, telly shape. So it's a Gibson scale with Gibson woods, mahogany, with a maple cap. So it's a cross between Les Paul and a telly because it's Les Paul scale, Les Paul woods, but it's shaped like a telly.
That's cool.
It's no Strat.
That is so clean. I can see my reflection of myself through these little. That's amazing, man.
But there's so much damage. Like, I don't know if you can see all that pick swirl and all that stuff.
I can't see that. No, sorry.
There's tons of dings all over. I mean, there's just like major dings all over it. But the only thing I worry about this is just being on the road for so long. So I'm always looking for like a backup for this. Or if I'm only doing a gig with 2 guitars, because I could use this on anything.
Yeah.
So now I've gotten a couple what I call backups to this one, but they get used probably almost as much. But this has every bell and whistle. It's got the drop D tuner.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
It's got a trim. You can pull this to activate the bridge and neck together for those true telly type sounds. I mean, it kind of covers everything. And then I ended up putting if you look at that back plate, how big it is.
Yeah, what the hell? What is
That's
that?
an Illich dummy coil system.
What does that mean? So
P90s are notoriously loud and they hum a lot. So there's a guy named Illich that makes these dummy coil systems. So there's actually a coil wire built into this back plate. So it makes the pickups humbucking even though there's still
single coils. Wow.
They use this coil of wire to kill the hum like a humbucker, but since there's no magnets and no anything else, it doesn't change the tone.
It's called Illich, I-L-I-C-H?
I-L-I-T-C-H. Illich Electronics.
Interesting. Thanks.
And I swear by these things. I've got them on 2 Strats, a Telly, this Anderson, also Illich backplate. So this is Fender. This is a Fender scale. I just traded for this year, but it's another Anderson. This one has maple neck. This is more Fendery, although the body is mahogany, but it's Fender scale length. So it's a little bit.
So you love the 3 pickups, man.
Yeah, it's so usable. It gets every sound. I don't have to worry about switching guitars for certain songs as much. Now, I've got so many guitars I do switch just because I can. But if I'm just doing a gig with 2 guitars, I'll take red and this one.
Right.
And then I've got a Sur that I had made for me. It's very similar to that, but it's got the arch top kind of to it. And it's mahogany and mahogany. Now, they don't have the Illich. They have their own system, but it's the same thing. But they use a battery but there's a dummy coil built into this back cavity.
So what do you feel, what are the differences between the Sur and I had an Anderson for a minute. It was like a Bulldog. I loved the guitar. I loved how it played. The pickups were just horrific. I don't know why I just didn't switch them out and get another pair because the guitar was great, but I didn't. I'd sold it.
Some of Tom's humbucking pickups, now the one that's in the neck on my tailhead, I love that one. But I've kind of fought a little bit some of the other ones. Now they sound good, but there's always like something missing in them for me.
I didn't like the sound of them at all, man.
The Surs, they feel, I don't know how they're made very similarly. The Surs and Andersons, quality wise, they feel totally different. The neck shape feel different. This one kind of feels thin and flatter, but they both feel really good. This one's just a heavy guitar between, the maple cap and it being an arch top. It's got a lot more mass. So it's a bit of a heavy guitar, but it sounds really good.
But there's no stark preference for one over the other. They both have their strength.
I've been playing Andersons for so long that those kind of feel more homey to me.
Sure. Yeah.
And just his neck shapes, I don't even think about his neck shapes. This is a great guitar. I mean, there is not a darn thing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I wish it had a plastic tip on the tremolo bar. That's the only thing I wish I had.
That's weird that it doesn't.
Yeah, it's that new Goto kind of thing. And I love Les Pauls. I got 2 really nice Les Pauls. This is the one I picked. I've been doing a lot of trading this year. Since we're not working, I'm swapping guitars. But I had a Collins I-35 that I basically swapped for this. It's an R8 from Chicago Music Exchange. It was one of their custom orders.
Very cool.
Viking Red.
What are those like? Sort of PAF imitations, or
the stock pickups were called custom bucker S's.
Okay,
which were some of the lowest wind custom buckers that they made, and they did sound really good. Mine were a little bit microphonic, so I had. What do you
mean by that?
They would squeal like a banshee if you were sitting in front of your gain amp or whatever.
Okay.
So I had to search around and find how to fix that. And what seemed to fix it is I took the cover off, the nickel cover off, and just put a little glue and then stuck the cover back down on it.
Oh.
So it basically keeps the coils in the cover.
That's interesting.
There's no air gap and it doesn't vibrate. So,
that's cool.
I'm a nerd too. I don't know if you know I build pedals.
No, I didn't.
I'm a tinkerer. I swap pickups a lot. Like even on the Sur with the 3 P90s, I wanted to put Antiquity P90s in it because that's what all my other Andersons have. But once I opened it up and saw how it was all wired, I was like, oh, this would be such a terror to try to stick all it. That's literally 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag inside that cavity.
Oh, wow.
I was like, I am not undoing all that wiring and all that. So I just ended up swapping the magnets on the pickups because I wanted them to get a little bit more of a vintagey sound, a little softer sound.
Yeah, that's a nerdy thing to do.
So
Not even the pickups, just the magnets.
Swap the magnets on the P90s, yeah. So
just knowing that you could do that is kind of nerdy.
I know.
In a good way, of course.
And I had to learn. I learned from the best, though. I've somehow become friends with Seymour Duncan over the years.
Cool.
Seeing him at NAMM and stuff, and I can message him every now and then, or he'll send me pictures of his new flint knapping. He makes arrowheads using flint like the Indians used to.
Sure.
So, that's just, if anybody knows Seymour, they've probably gotten pictures of his arrowheads. And stuff.
Of his arrowheads?
But anyway, I said, hey, I'm swapping magnets on this P90. How do I do it? So he sends me a video of him, showing how to flip the magnets over. Because I gotten a used SG with P90s, an old one, and the pickups were out of phase. So I was asking him how to put it back in phase. So he showed me how to flip the magnets over. So I was like, so in the process of doing that, I was like, well, that's easy. That's the easiest pickup to ever swap the magnets on. So now for P90s, I know I can swap magnets because I've learned how to do it.
There you go, man. That's a plan C or D.
And I've built pedals from kits. And my main pedal that I use for profiling, it's this guy right here.
And you built that? That?
It was a kit, but my son, it was actually just my son signed it back when he was 10 years old. It was kind of like a father and son kind of thing. I was just like, hey, help me build this pedal. So I was teaching him about it, showing him all the resistors and everything. And I had a little chart of where everything goes on the board. And he put it together and it sounded great. And I was like, that's amazing. So I wanted to build one after that to build another one. So I built mine and it didn't sound as good. So I was like, oh, crap. So I found out he just accidentally put because the capacitors look very similar, just like slightly different number on some. He put 2 of the capacitors in a different spot, like swapped them. And that made a huge difference in tone.
That's amazing.
Enough of a difference that this one sounded better than the original. So happy accident pedal. So now I've built probably 10 or 12 of these for friends and stuff.
What is that pedal for? Distortion, overdrive?
Yeah, it's an overdrive pedal.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's a clone of a Marshall Bluesbreaker pedal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the King of Tone is based on the same thing. But at the same time I was learning how to build pedals, my friend that owns Rocket Pedals, he's the one that gave me the kit to play around with because he had them sitting in his garage. And so I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And then I realized in an overdrive pedal, the diodes are basically the tubes. They do the same thing tubes do. So if you change tubes on a guitar amp, you get different tones depending on which diodes or which tubes are in it. And so I figured out I could swap different diodes and get slightly different tones out of it. So I bought all these different diodes from Small Bear and tried them out in different things. And so I finally found these diodes that nobody uses in any pedals, but that's what I used in this pedal is these strange little diodes.
This is the part of the show where I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well,
but people listening do, trust me, I'm ignorant on this. So somebody's getting stuff out of this for sure.
Yeah. So right before the Kemper thing, Chris and I were talking about, that was what I was doing. I was building these pedals right before. I thought this might be one of my avenues of something to do, when I'm off the road.
Is it?
But ended up being Kemper after all.
Oh. So yeah, you can only do so much.
These are great, and then I'll build them every now and then when I have time, and usually 2 or 3 friends are already kind of waiting for them all the time. So
that's cool, man. I'm sure all your stuff is sells out pretty quick, being so
I don't really sell them. I kind of just
just you have a demand for it. Yeah.
Tom Anderson got one of these. Guy with 6-wire, guy with the place for Colt Ford has one. Linda Taylor out in California has one.
Colt Ford, who's that? Jason?
Country guy, Spanky.
No. Who's the guitarist?
Spanky. Spencer.
Oh, no, I don't know him.
Spencer Bassett.
I know. Somebody else. Jason Chance used to play for him, I think.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk amps. What's your cabinet that you use to do all your modeling, and then what amps do you like to play live and in studio?
I don't use amps live anymore. So, I do use my Valve Train Michael Britt model. That's one over the Kempers.
That's cool.
That's I use live besides the Kemper. Now the speaker cabinets. You can probably see this one back here.
Yeah, for sure.
This black one here, that's a 112 third power cabinet.
Okay. Jamie Scott or whoever.
What's that?
It's Jamie. Well, I think he's changed his name, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a 112, but all of her cabinets have triangular things in them. So when he first came out with the company, he had a triangular 312 cab.
Okay.
But you couldn't stack anything on it, so it was kind of not very good. So then he came out with a 212 cab. But he realized, so like if you just have a rectangular box with two 12-inch speakers in it, you're going to get some standing waves because of the parallel surfaces hitting, and the waves are just going back and forth. So that's why most cabinets have kind of resonance to them, is because there's standing waves inside there that resonate at certain frequencies.
Right.
So on the 212 cabinets, he put a diagonal board in between them. So now they're not true triangles because they don't go all the way, but there's less standing waves because there's less parallel surfaces inside there.
And how does that change sound?
To me, it makes them very even sounding.
The speakers.
So I've got two of the 212s and two of the 112s, and they're all some of my favorite cabinets. They have a good bottom end, but they don't have this weird boxy sound. Like if you have a rectangular cabinet with standing waves, it just has this kind of usually resonant frequency in it, and it's kind of boxy sounding because it's usually in that low mid range. But anyway, I just love those cabinets, and I use them. Yeah. So my main 212 that I keep in my closet, I've got a closet that's got stuff all mic'd up and everything. That one lives in there, and I've got another one if I need to do some remote profiling or use a real cabinet for. So I've got a black and a white 212, and I got a black and a white 112. And I've profiled with the 112s a lot too. They're both great. Just whatever happened to be in the room at the time.
So I see you got a Marshall there. Do you not use any other, amp sources outside of the Kemper anymore?
Not for shows. No. I mean,
interesting.
I use them. I play them at home, That amp is actually, that's my pride and joy right now. I got that this year. It is a 1968 Plexi 50 watt.
Awesome.
Used to belong to Eric Johnson. It was on his tour back in 2018, that's the amp he took on tour with him. So
how'd you get that amp?
Friend of a friend, or this guy I know that traded an amp with him, with Eric. He lives in Austin. He had an older Marshall that Eric wanted, and so they swapped it and got that, and I bought it from him.
That's really cool.
I know. Totally lucked into it.
Who's traded amps or equipment with Eric? And he was in Texas for a long time. You probably know Red Volkart.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but I know exactly who he is.
Yeah, he's done some trading with Eric over the years. Yeah.
I had a Marshall back when I was in college in Austin, and it was I don't even know what year. It was old. It's like early 70s, 50 watt Marshall. And a guy named Buddy Whittington ended up buying it from me, I think.
Oh, yeah. I know that guy.
So, amazing player.
Do you know Greg Martin from the Headhunters?
Oh, yeah.
He's got a
He's got a lot of Marshalls, yeah.
Yeah.
I need to touch base with Greg. So my other Les Paul that I have is the Greg Martin model.
Right on, man.
Collector's choice. And as soon as I got it, I messaged Greg and said, hey, I got your guitar. But yeah, we did a lot of shows with the Headhunters over the year, and he's one of the sweetest human beings on the planet. I mean, just super nice guy.
Michael, you're 100% right. He's incredibly kind. He's like a special human being.
Oh yeah, he is.
He really, truly
he's amazing.
is. Yeah, he's got something going on. He's a very pure, honest. I mean, just a great human being. Yeah,
such a great player. He was the one that was trying to teach me how to, because I've always kind of been torn. I'm in a band that Dan Huff puts all these beautiful chorus kind of strat sounds on stuff, and so I always feel like I've got to have a decent sized pedal board to play our gigs, because to get all these Dan Huff sounds, and then all the sounds that I kind of gravitate towards a little bit more rootsy, but I would go see the Headhunters play before us, and it's just him and a chord and a Marshall on. And he's like, you should try that. And this sounds so much better. I was like, I know you're right, but I need to cover these chorusy, bits and stuff. So
I know. They were down here a while back, and he goes, hey, I brought my pedal board here. I said, what are you talking about? And he had a wah-wah pedal. Just a wah. He goes, it's just an experiment. I'm not really, committed to this. I said, play, man. You sound great.
Oh, he's amazing. I would love to get. I mean, and I always think, man, one day I'm just going to take this Marshall out and do a gig with just a Marshall, no pedals, nothing, just.
Right on, man.
I would miss all the harmony stuff, and I mean, because I use the harmonizer in the Kemper, I use all the delays and all that stuff. It's like I don't know if I'm a good enough player to. I can't do what Greg does. So I'm not good enough.
Well, you know what you don't. He doesn't know what you know. So it's like you both have different. Your frame of reference is so different from his.
Yeah, he's such a great player. I love that kind of playing.
Yeah, he's such a great tone. He just came out with a new record, actually.
Hey, really?
Yeah, hold on. Right here. It's called. It's not out yet, but it's coming out. He's going to come back on the show. Martin Smith McGee. It's called Eclectic Lazyland.
Nice.
So it's a bunch of different stuff. He's got a couple of country tracks on here. He's got some psychedelic stuff on here. And they cut this record. Actually, he was on the show. I met him about 3 years ago. And he came on a year after that because the Headhunters had a new record. And he said that night something happened. They went home and they made this whole record in one night. Like I think 11 of the 12 songs. So I'm excited to hear it. I haven't.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's on my short list. Yeah, he's a great guy.
That is awesome.
Okay, so that's your answer. And do you know another guy who's got a ton of Plexis? Do you know Dave Amato?
I know who he is. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got like
that's
50.
My only real Plexi. I've got a 72 metal front, and I've had that for years and years. It was in the Nashville flood in 2010.
And it got okay.
And
it was okay.
Delana, she fixed it all up. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's got new transformers. It's not really an old amp anymore. It's got new transformers and stuff, but it actually sounds better than it did before the flood.
Thank goodness, man.
Yeah. But between that one sounds angry. This one just sounds sweet. Huge difference. That one sounds mean. This one it's just really nice and smooth.
Hey, man.
The clean sound of this Marshall is amazing. Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's a beautiful amp, man. These things they sing. There's a reason why,
Yeah.
Top 3 Desert Island discs.
Ooh. Man, it's different every day, practically.
Oh, just for right now. Sorry. Just for right now.
Are you familiar with Big Wreck?
Yeah, I had Ian on my show.
Did you really? Oh.
Yeah. Oh, one of my
the only modern guitar hero I know. I mean, he's just amazing. I love that Ghost record and the Albatross record. Both of those might be on my thing.
What a great songwriter that guy is, man.
Yeah.
Incredible songwriter.
I listen to a lot of alt rock anymore. Vampire Weekend has some really cool songs. I don't know that I know a whole album of anybody. Most anything that's going to be whole albums. There's a Bruce Hornsby album called Harbor Lights. I could listen to that over and over to this day.
Is that an early one?
No, it's one of the later ones. Because after all his pop hits and stuff. But it was when he first started delving into a little bit more of the jazz stuff. It was either right before or right after the Hot House record. But Jerry Garcia and Pat Metheny play guitar on it.
Oh, wow.
It's really – Harbor Lights is a great album. And then I'm a huge ELO fan. So I just
you said you want to be an ELO cover band, man.
There's such great songs. And Jeff Lynne's just a brilliant producer and arranger and all that stuff. They played in Nashville last summer, and I saw them, and that was probably the best sounding show I've ever been to in my life. And then I read somewhere that they put no reverb on any of the vocals or instruments live. It's like, but it's use the room for ambience root. But
where did you see him?
Bridgestone Arena, huge big arena, and it sounded so crystal clear. And huge band, of course. They covered everything, all the strings, all the keyboard parts and the background parts. It was freaking amazing.
Dude, we need to do a Kickstarter, fund my ELO cover band.
We need a couple string guys, a couple key guys. It was amazing.
All right, tough question, man. What do you like most about yourself?
Ooh, I think I'm pretty funny. My wife thinks I'm pretty funny.
That's awesome. That's good. You are funny.
Well,
one of my sons.
Most of my humor is very not appropriate.
That's okay. Well, you're with the right guy, so it's funny to me.
So many times, me and my wife would be laughing about something. I was like, you can't post anything about this because no one would ever understand that we're not just completely criminals or something.
I don't post. You post a lot on Facebook?
I don't. I try to. I post for band stuff, but I'm also I'm a private person. I don't like posting pictures of my kids too much.
I get it totally.
We've had fans that have been a little bit overzealous in the past, and I just kind of.
I've heard that, man. A lot of guys, not a lot, but a small handful of people, and they're really like, when they go over, they're like way over the deep end, man.
Well, I mean, most of our fans are super respectful and super nice, and we've got a good portion of our fans that have literally been with us for 20-something years.
That's awesome.
And they're like family, if they, take a picture of my kids and give me the picture, it's okay. But when some people I don't know are like, here's a picture of your kid, I'm like, why were you taking a picture of my kid?
That's creepy, man.
So it doesn't totally freak me out, but I just think I just need to, I don't know anybody's thing.
Now, anytime someone breaches that wall between you and your family, it's creepy, man.
Yeah, a little bit.
Best childhood memory?
My Evel Knievel bike. So you got to keep in mind, this is early 70s, mid 70s.
Yeah.
Early 70s, I guess. Yeah, I had my parents got me an Evel Knievel bicycle. I had the fake gas tank on it, and it looked had the big motorcycle looking seat on it. And I don't know, we used to always, the street I grew up on had these extra streets that houses hadn't been built there yet. So there were all these dirt trails where homes were eventually going to be built, and we would take the dirt mounds and make hill jumps out of them and everything. So my favorite memories of growing up were just riding our bikes over these hills and measuring how far we could jump and all that kind of stuff. This is before BMX was ever a thing.
Sure.
Now they can, fly 30 feet in the air, but we were happy for 4 feet,
Of course. That was a big event too. Whenever Evel Knievel would do a stunt, man, it was like the whole country would sit in front of ABC, Wild World of Sports. And
and as soon as we'd see that, we'd go out with the bricks and the boards and make jumps and try to kill ourselves on the sidewalks. But it was a blast.
That's cool.
There's a picture of me somewhere with that bike, and I just have not found it yet. Hopefully I can find it at some point.
Send it to me and I'll use it as a picture for your interview. I will.
I really haven't seen it in years. I don't know if
If you find it, send it to me and I'll use it with a photo of your interview. I did that with somebody else. I can't think of who. It was somebody. No, it was a guy in Georgello in LA. Happiest moment or happiest time in your life, Michael?
This one right here. This is it.
Second happiest.
I don't know. I've had a lot. Most of them probably revolve around my kids and stuff, and getting married, and all the big personal things.
Yeah,
those are always good.
Very cool.
I'm happy when I go to the football games and see my son out there playing in his marching band, or see my daughter get an award for being good in school. It's just, I'm just proud of them.
Yeah, hell yeah. Now, I guess
that's the kind of stuff.
All that stuff was squashed, right? Because of COVID, like football games and marching.
Well, yes. This year I've been to one football game. The first one got rained out that I went to, but they're not doing full field shows this year. They're just playing on the infield.
Man, I'd hate to have young kids here, man. It's just not fair to them. Not fair to them.
I guess I don't know. I think what would have been like living through the Spanish flu if we had social media and stuff back then.
Yeah, a lot of us
is what it is now. These things happen and you just kind of survive them.
Yeah.
But it could be way worse. I've been fortunate enough that I can hold up at home and not have to leave very often. I go out for groceries and that's almost it. I did go crazy this year. And being off the road for so long, after being on the road for so long, I felt the need to get out. Plus, like for years, we would go to these really cool places. And if we're out west and we have 3 or 4 days off, we'll stay out there. And we call them grill and chills, where the band will just hole up at a KOA.
That's nice.
And get rental cars or Jeeps or whatever. And everybody just kind of hangs out. So it's kind of like a team building exercise, but it's just so we can act like kids, basically, and not have to go home. So, but I've been to all these really cool places: Moab, Utah, Bear Lake, Idaho, been to Yellowstone. And I always think, man, this would be so much fun to take the kids. But I only get like 5 days off, 7 days off at most in the summer when they're out of school.
Yeah.
So this year I thought, I'm going to take advantage of this. We're not on the road. This will be my only chance to take my kids out west. So I bought an RV, bought a pickup, and dragged this RV trailer and my family clear across the country we took them to Moab, Utah for a couple of days, rented Jeeps, went through the canyons, and did all the fun Moab stuff. And then we drove up the trailer up to Bear Lake, Idaho. And there's this beautiful blue glacial lake up there that's just gorgeous. Spent a day on the lake, and then we went to Yellowstone for a couple days. And then, so it was like a 10-day trip. But
that's nice.
I've been looking forward to that for so many years. But so now my new thing is, if we're going to be off the road this long, I'm going to try to use this RV trailer.
Yeah.
Enough to justify buying it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I love traveling, you know? So that's the thing I do miss, is traveling and seeing really cool places.
From what I understand, RVs are they're scarce now. Like it's hard to get those, and also any kind of exercise equipment.
Podcasting equipment you can't get.
Oh, I know these little cameras can't get them anymore. Yeah, it's really because everybody's on Zoom.
Yeah.
Wow, crazy. I guess in any crisis, somebody's making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Somebody's making money, and somebody's thinking of new cool ways to do something, which I think is.
Oh yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's awesome, man. Not that we're in this thing, but I think it's awesome that there's people creating opportunities for themselves. Yeah.
So I'm even looking forward to, if we ever get gigs that are within driving distance, I'm going to drive myself and
in the RV,
drive my own gigs in my RV. Yeah,
that's what, you have to, because you're never going to live down the cost of the RV unless you do.
I know, exactly.
Because I certainly wouldn't. I can tell you right now.
I got a really good deal on it. It was used, and I'm pretty frugal when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I got a really good deal on it, but still have to justify it.
You have any hobbies outside of music besides traveling?
Tinkering with electronic gear. Lately it's been the RVing, and I did buy a canoe. Only because I thought, something to do.
Yeah, why not?
Actually, our friends took us to the lake, and they had a boat and everything. It's like, well, I can't afford a big boat, but hey, I'll get a canoe.
Yeah.
Go on the water.
It's funny.
I did exactly once so far.
That's all right. You still got it.
Yeah.
I've been to Bear Lake. It's beautiful, man.
Isn't that great? It's just the prettiest water.
We went in August, and there was snow on top of the mountains. It was crazy.
It's a cold lake. We were there.
It was freezing.
We're August, and it was freezing.
It was ice cold.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey, 2 more questions, because I know you got to jump. Toughest decision you've ever had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
That was probably my divorce. That was probably the biggest personal thing. That was tough, because I knew it was going to affect my kids forever.
Yeah, it is tough.
Yeah.
And last question, man. Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional, and how much is just a natural part of aging?
Most of it's natural. I would say that I've always had a bad temper. Everybody in my family, I think, inherited it from some member of my family. I don't know. I'll blame my dad. But I'm sure my mom was not. But back when I just remember back when we were hitting it hard and having success, and feeling all the pressure of all that. I mean, we had 3 buses, 2 trucks. I mean, it was a stressful environment, I think. And I think I was just stressed all the time and kind of irritable. And I think just over the years, I've kind of chilled out from that. I still get stressed, but I don't lash out or yell like I used to. Mostly just yelling. I'm a loud yeller.
I'm shocked, to be honest with you, because you seem like the very mellow dude. Intense, but mellow.
I'm pretty mellow most of the time, but it's just when I can feel my temperature rise. Like the radiator boiling over. That's all I am. And it boils over and does this, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It cools off. But it's just not fun when it's happening.
No, man. I've
gotten a lot better.
Yeah. I used to be pretty hot tempered, so I get it. Hey, man. First of all, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking with you. You're a funny guy. And I want to get you in. If there's one thing I want to do in 2020 is get you set up in an ELO cover band. So I'm going to make one more appeal to all the listeners. Anybody in Nashville, I got a ton of pro guitar players that are in cover bands in Nashville. Get a hold of Michael Britt. He's your guy.
You just sub for, cover band. As long as it's not Steely Dan. It's too many chords.
Yeah, too many chords of Steely Dan. But hook them up, man. Listen, I want anybody who's interested in Kemper Profiles, this is the authority on it, and probably the guy who knows more about Kemper profiling than anybody, probably even from an actual application standpoint, probably more so than even the folks at Kemper. No disrespect to the folks at Kemper, but you're out doing this. So if you have a Kemper or you're thinking about getting one, go to mbritt.com, MBRITT as in michaelbritt.com, and go through his website. He's got tons of stuff there. Again, I am not have no skin in this game, but his prices are very, very, very reasonable for sure. Cause I've seen other products and other people selling stuff like that. And you're getting a great value, and you're getting, I'm assuming, great products as well, because I'm
also doing lots of presets for Line 6. I just came out with a bunch of Line 6 products.
Awesome.
Podgo, HX Stomp, and Helix. There's some presets out for those. Also Morgan, an official Morgan amps pack just came out. So
awesome.
Yeah, lots of new stuff.
Anything? Wait a minute. But wait, there's more. Come on.
Oh, and my Morgan pack. Also got the brown bag pack, which is an interesting concept that came up. I wanted to put out a pack of profiles where nobody knew what the amp was. So
so it's like
mystery amp.
Yeah, mystery amp. That's kind of cool.
Because I want to know. I mean, granted, everybody wants to say, yeah, I'm playing a real Dumble profile.
Sure.
But aside from those humongous names, I was like, does it really matter what amp it is if it sounds good?
Right.
So
no.
It's my experiment. So for $7, you can get a brown bag amp profile.
Dude, that is really cool.
Yeah. I'm curious
to see how it
works out.
Yeah, man. So, and go to mbritt.com, check all this stuff out. If you are looking for someone to be in your ELO cover band, depending on, he's got an RV, he's got to justify the cost. Would he go to Asheville, North Carolina? Probably. Would he go to Austin, Texas? I bet. Yeah. So, I mean, you never know. And anything else I can promote or support of yours?
I think that's it for now.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Michael Britt. Again, check out all his Kemper profiles and all the cool stuff he's got going on at mbritt.com. And most important, remember, especially nowadays, man, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Thank you so much, brother.